espera? Ok, vale. Sí, es que, claro, el momento donde no me funciona el ordenador. Dear all, dear speakers, thank you very much for being with us today. It's a privilege to be with you here physically and also online for our participants following on YouTube. Today we are going to discuss about gender equality and climate finance. Before introducing the speakers, allow me to explain why we consider that on Gender Day at the COP27, it was important to have a specific debate exchange with representatives of international donors, financial institutions, regional stakeholders, private funds to discuss about this topic. Because the UFM, which is an intergovernmental organization of 42 member states covering both European Union and non-European countries, believes that including gender equality as main objective of climate finance is not good to have, but is a must, meaning we are not really interested in gender washing. And why we consider this is important? Women are 50% of the population, and we cannot have just climate transition, we cannot have sustainable climate finance without women. And what is applicable to the concept and the approach when we talk about women economic inclusion, and we say there is an opportunity cost if we don't involve them, the same apply with women gender equality and climate finance. There is a positive correlation between gender equality and climate change and gender inequalities. We consider that if we want to have a sustainable climate finance, gender should not be just a cross-cutting issue, should be a main target objective. This is why for us it's important to empower women to drive climate change, to help them to share the transition to green economy. And we will talk about this also. Strengthening land rights, we are talking about the Euro-Mediterranean region. We are talking about the MENA countries, where the presence of women in the rural area, in the agro-food sectors, is quite relevant. And we want to ensure access to finance and technology. Where we talk about green economy, we are talking about also technology. And if women don't have access to infrastructure, to green technology, meaning also having access to finance for working on this area, we will not achieve our overall objective. During the COP26 in Glasgow last year, all the parties apply for a more effective implementation of Lima World Programme as a gender plan. And there was, at the same time, a clear call from the United Nations Women Commissions this year in March, which is the year of gender equality and fight against climate change, about the need to mobilize all the actors, private and public, and to mobilize financial resources. Why? Because without specific support and financial support, all the political commitment will not be effective. So the request from all the parties is to move to implementation. And to do this, let me mention also a couple of positive data. In the last 10 years, from all the actors, especially from the private sector, the financial institutions, and the donors, a big attention has been put on gender equality. So all the main climate funds, the first one, the Green Climate Funds, have adopted gender equality strategies. They have put clear targets. They have been advocating also for including gender equality among the target group of the National Action Climate Plan. I have to say that so far in the MENA region, only 4 countries have a specific target group in the National Climate Action Plan as women. But just two of them have put also financial allocation. There is a financial mobilization on this. So still there is a lot of work to be done. And in this framework, the Union for Mediterranean, which is a policy dialogue platform, has advocated about this, and the result has been that in the last 5 ministerial declarations adopted between 2021 and 2022 on blue economy, energy, climate action, employment, and women, there is a common thread saying that if we want to have this sustainable transition to a future where the climate change will not be the threat, we need to think about how to create a sustainable economy for youth and women. But in this ministerial declaration, we saw a shift from the previous years, meaning that this time we don't speak about women as only as vulnerable groups. They are agents of change. And climate finance is exactly about this. It's considering the role of women as agents of change, meaning driving the adaptation and mitigation strategy on climate change. And this is why we decide today to invite our speakers to discuss about 3 main topics. One is which are the possible solutions in order to have a sustainable climate finance targeting gender equality, which are the lessons learned based on their experience from the different perspectives that we will listen today, and more important, because we are on the 2nd week of the COP, so we will be waiting for the final negotiations, what can be done to make this climate just transition more effective? What is expected from their institution, and what should be requested as a call for action also for the countries? Of course, each of them will give us a different perspective, and this is why we will give the possibility to all of them to present their good practices and way forward. Without further ado, let me introduce our distinguished speakers. Sorry, just to be sure how to pronounce the name. We have with us Mr. Hakan Emsgaard, Swedish ambassador to Egypt. Thank you. We have with us Mr. Michael Mullen, economist, policy analyst on OECD. Thank you, which just for you to say, the Swedish Cooperation Agency is the main donor of the UFM on gender equality and climate. We cooperate with OECD as one of the main partners in our regional dialogue policy. And we have with us Ms. Sunita Pitamber, Associate Director, Access to Service and Gender Mainstreaming, Gender and Economic Inclusion of EBRD. And last but not least, Mr. Ellen Brooks, British International Investment, who will represent also today the initiative on gender smart finance. Thank you very much. I'm going to take the seat and to go with the first round of questions. Thank you very much. Yes, can you hear me? Now? Yes, fantastic. Sorry. Ambassador, thank you for being with us today, especially because I guess all of you have a lot of panels to attend, so thank you for your time. The Swedish Cooperation Agency has been working in the last 10 years at least in the MENA region, both from a thematic perspective and for a gender perspective. You have specific regional agenda, and the UFM is one of the implementing partners. Can you please tell us what has been the main objective of both the gender equality and environmental and climate challenge strategy for Sweden in the MENA region, and which are the main lessons learned based on the result of this investment?
Thank you so much, Anna, and thank you for organizing this event here today in the Mediterranean Pavilion. And I think you're absolutely right when you say that the task for us now is to move towards implementation. So I will try to contribute a little bit with what we have done and what the lessons that we have learned from these projects and these programs that we have implemented. Before I do that, however, I would like to say that we have a new government in Sweden since 3 weeks. So we have a couple of rather fresh ministers coming to visit us here. And one thing that the new government has said is that they will not use the word feminist foreign policy anymore. So what does that mean? Does it mean a change also in substance? My assessment, in particular after having talked with our Minister for Climate Affairs who came this morning to Sharm el-Sheikh, is that the words are different, but the content is very similar. And the gender issues will be very high on the agenda, or as high on the agenda for the new government as it was for the old one. Now, moving over a little bit to what we're talking about, I think one of the issues that is important to us, and now I'm focusing on the Mediterranean region, and I sort of include the MENA region in this concept, is the importance of building trust across the borders. We all know that the MENA region is probably the least integrated region in the world, and we have to think about what can we do about that, how can we contribute to integration. And therefore the new MENA strategy that we have, which is but 1 year old now, is focusing very strongly on regional integration. So that is reflected in all the projects and programs that we will be doing for the next 5 years. And if you think about it, climate is a very good point to start with this, because it's transboundary, it's relatively, at least in the Middle Eastern region, uncontroversial, I would say, because it's so obvious that we share the challenges of this. So if you want to promote regional integration, climate is a good point to start with that. And that's why we are also contributing, for instance, to programs like EcoPeace, who is about those countries, Israel, Jordan, Palestine, affected by the Jordan River, and how can we, in this, I would say, relatively complicated political environment, how can we find a format to work within and to produce result? We have been a long-term partner in this, and it has been a very good journey in terms of the lessons that we have been able to pick up from this. The other example for this, I would say, is the support we are given to the Union for the Mediterranean and for the gender mainstreaming and the gender focus that we sort of have included in this support, because of course the Union for the Mediterranean is a very regional organization, and we have very good experience from this work. Finally, one more aspect perhaps of this is the importance of inclusive participation in the projects that we do. And this is of course something that we are underlining when we are contributing to the Adaptation Fund, the Green Climate Fund, and other funds that we are relatively large contributors to. And this is a concept that is very close to the idea of mainstreaming gender issues in the projects we do. And this is something we've talked about for a long time, but we need to remind ourselves about this. So that would be my initial observations. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I think you pointed out two key concepts, especially for the Mediterranean region, as you say, the need to work on a further structured regional integration, and climate, but also gender, are both key. And this is why the nexus for us is so important. And the other concept is the inclusive participation. How women as agents of change can be on board. So it doesn't mean only to target them as vulnerable group, as I said at the beginning, but to have them on board in the development, in the outline, in the elaboration of the proposal. And this meaning also having women in a leadership position too. And this is what other topic where we talk about climate fund or gender lens investment, we should also take it on board. Thank you very much for the first round of questions. I will now go to Mr. Michael Mullen from OECD. We know that OECD is committed to support the member of the Development Assistance Committee in further leveraging their official development assessment to support gender responsive climate action. And the last report published by the OECD, more in particularly the Supporting Women Empowerment Through Green Policy and Finance, that is a REDA publication, the data show that still there is a very low percentage of funds targeting gender equality as main objective. And we would like to know from you, because OECD is working at regional and bilateral level with a lot of countries in terms of governance, capacity building. What do you think is the more relevant lesson learned that you have from this collaboration with the regional stakeholders? Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. So look, maybe just as a bit of prelude, at OECD we see gender and climate action as mutually reinforcing. We don't see a tension between them at all. Our recent report on gender and environment, building the evidence base, showed that in general, and one doesn't want to generalize too much, but women display more pro-environmental behaviors than men. So that's one side of the coin. On the other side of the coin, one of the main opportunities for climate investment in the MENA region is clean energy, roughly 40% of investment. And what we see there is currently, and again, this is not ideal, but it's roughly 1/3 of the new employment created is for women, compared to an average of only 1/5 in general. So not perfect, but still, I guess, slightly better. So in terms of where we see and what needs to happen, in terms of the dedicated climate funds, it's been encouraging to see some of the reforms underway, driven with the support of also the donor countries, to really mainstream this into their operation.
Sorry, can you talk? Yeah.
Sorry. To really mainstream this into their operations. You very kindly mentioned our recent report looking at gender and development finance. So what we've seen is, on one level, encouraging. So the volume of aid that's tracked as both climate finance and contributing to gender objectives has increased dramatically from 4.4 billion in 2010 to 18.9 billion in 2019. So, that's the good news story. The flip side of it is, if one looks a bit more closely at climate finance that primarily targets gender objectives, that was a mere 778 million, so less than 1% of total resources. So we've talked about climate funds, we've talked about development finance. In terms of the broader 2.1C objective of aligning the financial system with climate objectives, I think this is another area where we still have a lot of work to do. And at least in development finance, we have some numbers, whereas for the broader question of alignment, we know there's more needs to be done, but we don't yet even have the data to fully understand the extent to which gender considerations are being taken into account. So there's some important work to be done in filling this gap. Thank you. And
thank you for pointing out these key data. And I wanted also to mention another element that in the report was mentioned, that is this lack of disaggregated data per gender when we talk about investment, or we talk about green economy, or we talk about green technology. There is a lack of data, both from public and private system. So it's also difficult to assess. We have some forecasts about the fact how much the GDP could grow if, but finally we don't have. And from the other side, we don't have monitoring data in terms of which is the final impact of the gender-aligned investment, what brought in terms, and this is applicable, I think, both for gender or environmental project. This lack of final monitoring data should be one, in my opinion, of the topic to be tackled in the next year. Thank you very much. And now we will go to financial institutions with a very specific perspective. EBRD has been one of the main key actors in developing and promoting the two for collaborative and two for challenge criteria, which are, let's say, industry standard, pushing for having a gender lens approach when we talk about investment. Can you tell us more which are the main objective of these two approach, where you are going, who is involved in the platform, and what do you consider the main added value of this experience that was adopted in 2018, if I'm not wrong? Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much for this question, and I think this is very relevant to what we are discussing at this important event for the last 1 week and this coming week as well. For us at the EBRD, we are guided by our new gender strategy and our equality of opportunity strategy. So we have two interlinked but distinct strategies which guide us on what we want to do in our private sector investments in terms of gender equality, promoting inclusion as well. And a key point in these two strategies is really to build on successful partnerships. So we are partners in the 2X, and we are part of the, specifically on the 2X Climate Task Force. And one of the concrete outputs and outcomes of this partnership has been the new gender-less lens investment guidelines, which was launched at the COP26 last year. Now, this is an important toolkit because it helps investors, investees, funders, donors, bankers, anybody who's interested, companies, to know how to promote gender equality in climate finance in all sectors. That is very, very important, and I think that was quite a critical point last year, because the toolkit really makes that difference for all investors. We are also working very closely under our two strategies. We have already been aligned to quite a number of the 2X criteria. For example, if I were to talk about the increasing women's access to training, technical training, green jobs, green skills, we're already aligned to that, and we've been working on that quite a long time. So for example, since between 2017 and 2019, we have created almost 4,000 new training opportunities for women, and including within the intersectionality of women in migrants, women refugees. So that's an important area that we have been contributing to with our private sector investments. We're also working very hard towards increasing the number of women in leadership positions, and that has been a very successful area for us, where we invest in companies and we work with the companies to see how they can create space through promoting equal opportunities actions plan and improved HR policies to improve their women in leadership positions as well. We have also been able to work on promoting more access to finance for women entrepreneurs. One of the products that we are very proud of is our work with the green economy financing facilities, which provides green finance or climate finance to partner financial institutions. And with our help, we help them to target more female entrepreneurs to access clean technology. So the GEFs, with the help of the GEFs and the tool that we are working on, we have rolled this out in almost 9 countries now and reached almost 400 women to be able to provide them with access to clean technology for their businesses, for their entrepreneurship activities. It has also helped us to work with the partner financial institutions to train them and their staff, and including their management, in gender awareness, in gender mainstreaming skills, and providing a clear lens on how to promote women's access to finance. As we know, there is already a research that shows that when loan officers, they do not know if an application belongs, a loan application belongs to a female or a male, they are likely to give the same sort of an assessment of the application. But when they know this loan application belongs to a female, they're more likely to reject it. So we are trying to sensitize the partner financial institutions where we invest, trying to sensitize the loan officers, their management, to remove this sort of a gender bias in their work. So with that, I think we've also been able to promote the gender lens in climate finance, specifically in the partner financial institutions, which is always quite difficult. And we have also been able to work very closely on policies which are important for unlocking private sector opportunities for investments where women can become quite important actors. So for example, in our project in Morocco, we have invested in the Sais and Garret project, which is an irrigation project, and we have worked with the Ministry of Agriculture to bring in more women in decision-making roles, women water user associations, policy making, and also helped to work with the ministry to bring in a gender sort of mainstreaming lens into their national strategies. So these are all efforts that we are taking ourselves to align with the 2X, but also looking at how do we unlock new opportunities. And that's really an important platform for us all to not only work together, but to collaborate and show that we are able to build on increasing access to finance and economic opportunities for all women and youth as well, but also women who are in other sort of situations, who are refugees, who may be persons with disabilities. So how do we bring them all to benefit from these new economic opportunities? So this is really where we are, and we work very closely with the 2X. We've always had a number of coordination meetings, and we're able to also work with them on new products as the platform grows and new areas are becoming quite important. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, for the commitment on gender equality, for all the activities that you have been implementing, and indeed, in the last 4 years, I think EBRD is becoming a champion in this fighting for supporting gender equality when we talk about climate finance. Just to mention that one of the activity on which the UFM we will focus also next year will be on this specific nexus, gender and blue and green economy and environment. And this year in June there was an international conference on blue finance, and all the institutions represented especially stressed the need to focus on youth and women among their target group. And EBRD, but also Sweden, are part of the new Blue Economy Partnership that was launched last week with the UFM. So we will really are eager to see how to include also a gender dimension in this new initiative. Thank you very much. And now we will talk about a more private perspective with our speaker, with Ellen. Again, the for collaborate 2 weeks, sorry, and also gender smart funds are one of your main outcome, let's say, in the last year. So I would like to ask you maybe to give a concrete example on what the gender smart finance tool is, which are the methodology or the activity that you have been implemented thanks to it, and which do you think is the main added value and lesson learned again on this? Thank you.
Sure, happy to. And yeah, great to be on this panel today. So my name's Ellen Brooks. I'm from British International Investments. We are the UK's development finance institution. So we're smaller than EBRD and we've really focused on private sector investing. So it's UK aid money, but we're really targeting that to crowd in private sector finance. So we invest in private sector investments directly and via funds or financial institutions in Africa and South Asia. We're also a founding member of the 2X Challenge, which is the challenge for investing more capital in women. And alongside EBRD, we're one of the partners who created the 2X Green Toolkit. So it's great, Sunita, that we're on the panel together today. And I can pick up a bit where Sunita left off on the tools that we created. So for those of you that haven't seen the 2X criteria, it really is a way of identifying whether your investments support or impact gender equality. We take a value chain approach to that. So it could be women in leadership, women in entrepreneurship, women in workforce, or products that target women consumers. And each of those 4 dimensions, we have the threshold that can be used to identify whether that investment really is having outsized impact on gender equality. But I'm not from the gender team, I'm from the climate team. And so what we've been doing really with partners like EBRD is taking that 2X approach and laying that on our climate finance investments. And it's been a great process. We've been doing this now for, well, really intentionally for about 2 years. And I'm here at COP and really excited about Gender Day for the opportunity for other private investors to do the same thing. And certainly to join the discussions and the work of the 2X Collaborative to build this forward. I think really it has 2 advantages. I mean, the first is that we have now a definition of gender smart climate finance, which is really important. You need to be able to define something before you can track it or measure it or talk about it at COPs. So I think that definition has been crucial. So it's an investment which is climate finance, but is also 2X qualified. With that definition, then the toolkit is much more than just this definition. It has a section on the business and the impacting case for investing in women, particularly for climate finance. So I can give you some stats from that. But we know that women are more likely to start a sustainability-focused business, but they're less likely to receive capital to grow that business. And if you're a climate tech investor, like many of people at COP today, that's a huge opportunity for you to tap into for your investment thesis. The second key point is really that women in leadership really have a positive effect on the returns, the financial returns of a company. So we know that women on boards, greater board diversity really is correlated with better management of risks. That includes climate risk. And there's also emerging evidence in the toolkit, so please go and look at it, that more gender diverse companies outperform those that are less gender diverse. So we as the 2X Challenge and BII and EBRD and others, we're here because we're really passionate about the impact case, but actually because the business case here is so strong for gender mainstreaming women. Final kind of point is just women as consumers. Women are known to influence about 80% of purchasing decisions globally, and they are more likely to buy a sustainable product. And so if you are a company selling a sustainable, a low carbon, a resilient product, you cannot afford to ignore women consumers. And so that's sort of the third angle here for private finance investors, to wake up and smell the case, smell the coffee for investing in women. There's lots more we could say on this, and all of it is on the 2X website. So we've got sort of sector due diligence checklists for taking you through whether an investment is gender or climate smart. We have lots more information on the business and the impact case that I outlined. We also have a guide to the emerging, and I think this is very emerging, but either green or gender investments that have financial structures within that investment that incentivize greater climate or gender diversity outcomes. So we've got some information on that. And we really hope that this is a useful, practical toolkit to really accelerate investment in this space. We need to be coming back to COP28 with much higher ambition and much more evidence of the gender smart climate finance we've delivered in the next 12 months.
Thank you very much, especially for giving a positive outlook on this, because as you said, when we talk about finance, we have to convince the investor to invest because it's a business case. And this is somehow even, let's say, more worrying based on what Sunita was saying before about the fact that still in the financial institution or in the investment bank, if they know that the proposal comes from women, they most likely will not give a loan or will invest in them, when the data are showing exactly that it could be the best investment. But again, training, capacity building, spreading the knowledge, and the data showing this. It's a long pathway, but I think, as you say, in the next 12 months, hopefully, we will see more results in the next COP, or even in this one. We don't know until Friday. I will now go for the second round of questions that are quite similar to what of you, because, as I say, we are in the second week, and we would like to leave the COP with some concrete recommendation of what is missing. You were saying that a lot of things have been done, but still, if we are talking about a gender equality objective that is quite far from being achieved from all the countries, not only on climate change, but in all the areas, what do you think is still missing in this specific thematic area? Both because there is no priority, the issue is not a priority in political agendas, or because there is a lack of cooperation between the private sector, or because the women needs are not being identified, which in your opinion, from your own perspective and your experience, which is the missing step to have an effective implementation, let's say, program in the region, and what the COP should bring to improve this situation? I will start from Sunita this time.
Well, thank you very much. This is a very important question, and I guess this is what we want to also find out here in this COP27. As you mentioned in your introduction, we know that many NDCs, I mean, there has been some improvement in how NDCs mention gender issues, but the problem has been still in the actions, the implementation part. So while we are seeing some improvements, there is still a long way to go. We also know that while we have a very clear gender action plan under the Lima work program that accompanies the Paris Agreement outcomes, we also know that they seem to go in two different tracks, two different parallel sort of roads. So I think, in my opinion, it's very important to bring closer the gender issues to focus within the Paris Agreement outcomes, and how do we bring those gender issues to become part of that road towards Paris Agreement outcomes. And I think that is an important area for policy engagement. So what we have done, for example, as a concrete support, and as we are under the theme of implementation for tomorrow in this COP27, what we have done at the EBRD, together with the partnership of African Development Bank and Agence Française, we have developed a new accelerator, Gender Equality and Climate Action Accelerator. It's a digital toolkit. It's available as of today on our website. And what it allows every company and every ministry to do is go into that accelerator, fill out about 10 questions about where their gender gaps are in relation to the Paris Agreement outcomes, following the Lima Work Program Action Plan, and it then takes you to a concrete action that you need to take as a company to improve your corporate climate governance to make it more gender responsive, that you as a ministry can take those actions to improve the gender responsiveness of the sectoral strategies or the national climate strategies if you wanted to. So that's a very practical tool, and it's free, and it allows you to also demonstrate and to show to your board, if you wanted to as a company, where you wanted to put more emphasis going forward. So I think this is going to be an important area for us to demonstrate where action can be accelerated going forward.
Thank you very much, and congratulations for the toolkit. I'm eager to look for it, and I'm sure, as I said before, we could include it as one of the tools to be disseminated also in the regional dialogue platform of the Union for Mediterranean when developing the roadmap for implementing the Ministerial Declaration on Women. Thank you very much. Ambassador, same question. From your perspective, meaning a country national representative, international agency for cooperation, targeting the MENA region, after so many years of collaboration with the country, with the regional stakeholder, what is still missing?
I think the answer is twofold. I think you have to continue to do some of the things that you already do, and I think you have to pick on some new elements to this. One obvious challenge, if you look at the COP, is of course financing for mitigation and adaptation, and that we need to increase financing for adaptation. It's difficult to do this, not so easy to projectify the needs that we see. I see some hope here when I see, for instance, what the EBRD is doing in terms of creative projectifying of these issues, and also looking very closely to the specific needs in the specific countries. I think this is the way forward, actually, and it's very good to see this work that you are doing there. Then we have talked about benchmarking, we have talked about gender integration in the climate work. I think this is a question of consistency. We need to keep on doing it, and we need to keep doing it across the board. It's a little bit boring, but that's the way it is, I think. And it's important to not end up in this tick the box kind of thing, because ticking the box means that we look at all the countries, all the sectors, all the projects in a very similar, monotonous way. So getting out of that, I think, is very important. And then, of course, the private sector, as several of us already have been talking about. We see that when it comes to innovation, when it comes to solutions, those are coming from the private sector to a very, very large extent. And at least in my country, in Sweden, in climate solutions in general, the private sector is driving the government. It's driving the government. It's encouraging the government to do more, to move faster. There's an element of impatience from the private sector towards the government, and I think that is the order of things that we should have, actually. But then when it comes to the MENA region and the Mediterranean region, I think that many of the Swedish companies here that I know and I have talked to have also seen the tremendous human capital we have here. And all these extremely well-educated, ambitious, creative, innovative young women you find in the region. And if we can unleash that potential, I mean, then we will make a lot of progress for the coming years, or until we meet again. One final point, perhaps, which also I think the OECD took up here, and which is important, is the data. Sorry? The data, that we can build this into the projects. I think to do the evaluation, we need to build these structures into the projects and the programs from the beginning. so that we can evaluate, so that we make sure that we have the gender-specific data that we need to see if we have achieved the objectives that we set out in our strategy documents and so on. So that would be my reflections on that. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. For sure, the UFM is looking forward to work on data monitoring. We have set up a monitoring system on gender data 2 years ago. We have published a first report this year, and we will keep working on for the next 2 years on it. And as you said, this cooperation between private and public sector, I think is key, but without forgiving that indeed we should also have on board research institution and also civil society organization, because the data we need also from their side. Thank you very much. Ellen, what do you think could be further developed as follow-up somehow of your gender smart finance toolkit for the next year, and how you can spread the use of the tool among all the actors, especially in the framework also of the COP27, COP28 and so far. Thank you.
Yes, no, it's a great question. We've really got our mind now planning, like, what does 2023 look like for this? How can we bring more actors into this work? So very happy to speak to that. I mean, I think there are kind of 3 things that need to happen. I've touched on the first already, but it really is that other investors start using the 2x criteria, overlay that with their green finance taxonomies, and really start to articulate what is the finance that they're investing that really meets both gender equality and climate goals. And I think that's the first thing. Then I think we need to get smarter about what that actually means to be investing at the nexus of climate and gender. And some of you have mentioned monitoring, understand the impact of our investments, getting gender disaggregated data. I think that will be really helpful. So when we're investing in a renewable energy company that's led by women or that employs more women, what does that mean in terms of performance outcomes? And how could we as an investor structure our investments to deepen the impact there? And so I think there's things around, how do you originate gender smart climate deals? How do you structure them? How do you potentially do climate value add activities within your investments, which is something that DFIs and MDBs do a lot of. So what I mean by that is, say we were working with a company to implement the recommendations of the TCFD, the Task Force for Climate Related Financial Disclosures. There's a governance pillar to that. So how would you make that governance gender smart and gender responsive? There's so many opportunities, I think, for us to use this double lens, your gender lens and your climate lens within your investing, to really smartly deepen your work. We haven't done a lot of this yet. These are sort of my ideas for the future. So the first is that tracking and reporting. The second is thinking about what does it mean to invest in the nexus. I think the third thing is really scaling funding to go to this nexus a lot more quickly. We're talking a lot at this COP, at future COPs, about what a new ambition on climate finance looks like, both in terms of volume, but I think also in terms of quality. And quality climate finance has to be inclusive, not just to women, to other marginalized groups. We also have to think about adaptation finance as high quality climate finance in there as well. So obviously a volume target both at the UNFCCC level and at institution levels is essential, but how can we think about gender responsiveness within that and really using the sophistication that I think we've now got as an investor community to really precisely articulate that. So that's what I'd like to see happen in the next 12 months.
Ambitious, but quite clear. And hopefully you will have the support of all your partners. Of course, the Union for Mediterranean, we will be happy to promote, spread the knowledge about the toolkit, but also on the future steps. Thanks a lot. Michael, you will be the last one. So from OECD perspective, you have a lot of ambitions too, I know, about the next future. And what do you think? You, especially OECD, working as the UFM a lot with the government level. What do you think you could ask more from their side in the topic of more gender-sensitive climate finance. Thank you.
Excellent. It's funny, I was tempted just to say, yes, I agree to all of the previous interventions. But look, I think, within the UN process, there are issues, I guess, on the process side. If you saw the recent report from the Secretariat on gender inclusion within the UN bodies, it makes pretty shocking reading, to be honest. And I think that lack of representation in the process feeds through into some of the outcomes that you then see. But also, it's a party-driven process. And so the parties need to take responsibility for getting better outcomes. And it's very encouraging when we see that, and I think we need to see more of it. And so within OECD, within our membership, we both advocate for gender-responsive policies more generally, but also I think we have a particular role in helping to fill some of these data gaps. So just to give an example, I believe today or very soon, we've launched a COVID-19 green recovery tracker, including a gender dimension with UNDP and UN Women, which is helping us to understand what is the gender dimension of the COVID recovery packages. I think this kind of work will be essential, and others have spoken about it, in getting a better sense of where are we and where do we really need to get to in the future. Thank you.
Absolutely, and the data unfortunately are not so positive, not yet, but I really believe that the cooperation and the exchange of knowledge and practices is a key element in this. Thank you very much for all your insight. We have 4 minutes more. If there is any question from the public, it's not. So allow me just to give to. Do you want? Okay. Just to sum up, and which are the next steps. I think that today we have learned that there are a lot of activity implemented in the MENA region, in the Mediterranean, and specifically in the MENA region, thanks to different kind of actors. Maybe they are not so well known, because there is no, from one side, maybe still enough attention to the topic, from also maybe the media in promoting it, because we talk a lot about women as the more impacted by climate change, but we don't speak so much about what women can do to fight climate change, or what the private actor can do for them. The second thing is, for sure, we need data, disaggregated from all the actors, but we don't need the data just to have a picture of the situation, but we need data about after the action is implemented, which is the final impact. And again, this is a general, I think, question for all kind of environmental, social, and governance issues. And the third thing, I think, is, as you show, because you have been cooperated in different framework, in different initiatives, I think an effort maybe to better structure the cooperation at a different degree of cooperation, because more or less, most likely, we are doing the same. And the idea is, if we put our energy together, I think the impact could be stronger with the, final outcome of having women really on board, having access to finance, having access to land, and being actors when we're talking about biodiversity, when we're talking about circular economy, blue and green economy. The ambassador was mentioning that there is so huge human capital in the area, but unfortunately, even if they are with high level of knowledge in STEM, that is a key element when we talk about climate change, the difficulties in having access to labor market or having access to finance when they are women entrepreneurship is still there. And this is where also we will need to work. We are cooperating with UNIDO, And next year, we will focus our activities on innovation and industry with access to finance and climate finance as cross-cutting issues. So hopefully we can cooperate also on this. Thank you very much again, and good luck for your next panels in this week. And hopefully COP27 will bring good news about gender equality and climate finance. Thank you very much.